be back. You know, when I came into Charlotte last night, drove out, and it felt like I was coming home because we spent a week here in the spring, and then we were here for about a month in the summer. And so now we've gotten, I guess we're not quite officially into winter, but I call this the cusp. So now I've been here almost all 4 seasons. And it's been wonderful. It's been great. But I'm just going to dig right into this and just go for it. And this goes back, some of this goes back, come on, this worked a minute ago. This goes back to why we are doing this in the first place, is what else could be done in Blowing Rock to mitigate the effects of being a popular destination? So what else can we do? And so the real focus of this whole effort has been to how do we manage tourism. So this isn't about marketing, it's not about branding, it's not about anything. This is tourism management plan, and a sustainable one. What's going to be sustainable over a number of years? And this whole process that we've been going through is we started with the destination assessments. That's where we came in for a week and we secret shopped the town. Photographed it, Tracy, nobody gave us any information. We just said, we want to come in like any other visitor, and what's our experience? And we did that in a workshop, which I think is still up online. Then we did public outreach. There was a questionnaire, an online questionnaire. We got more than 400 responses on that. Then we interviewed local stakeholder groups. We did research of past plans and studies done by the town, the TDA, and we looked at your visitor profile. We did a lot of tourism research. We even went to your lodging properties and asked them some information. We can't share them by individual properties because it was really gracious of them to provide it by individual properties. About 3/4 of them responded, we want to know what their occupancy rates were over every month of the year. And then we looked at state tourism research, and we did an on-site assessment of parking, traffic, pedestrian access, and that is looking at what have other communities done in other places all over the country. And so we did that, and then we even looked at civic association initiatives, and finally we did a comparative research of other cities and towns, what they do by season. So we spent months doing research, and it was all, the main things that we took into consideration is what you, the citizens of Blowing Rock, said. That was our #1 priority. When we talked to the lodging properties, one thing we found is you're not as full as you think you are as far as overnight stays. You have a tremendous amount of day visitors, but even in July and August, you're not 100% full. And we even asked the lodging, so you can see, like in January, February, March, April, May, you know, here we are in November and December. You know, these months you're about 50% full, but those months you're not even, you're about barely 40% full. So this doesn't mean you should stop any marketing. We just got to concentrate it on those shoulder seasons and put more what we call heads in beds in the tourism industry. We even asked the lodging about weekends versus weekdays. And of course, the weekdays are in purple. I mean, the weekends are in purple there, and the weekdays, you can see the weekdays were really weak. The occupancy levels might be 20%, 15%. And so we know there's room to fill there. But during all this research, we also looked at where is your day market versus your overnight market. I think you're really heavy on day visitors. And so we even did further research, and that white circle there is basically a 50-mile radius. This one is 100 miles. Now, when I left Charlotte International Airport last night, it was 87 miles to Blowing Rock, and it took me about an hour and a half. And this is at night in December. So I could see why you have such heavy day trip visitation. It's, you know, since the completion of 321, it is so easy just to go up there for the day. And that's something that's probably fairly new when this was completed. But we also looked at the demographics that you have within that 100, within 100 miles, you have 7 million people This is why you are having, if we could be a perfect world, we'd say, okay, nobody's allowed here except overnight visitors. I'm sure the locals would love that. But this is a free country, and they love coming up here for the day. What we have to do is figure out how can we convince more of these people to spend the night. Overnight visitors spend 3 times more than day visitors, and they have their own parking. And so that's something we want to do. So we looked at all these numbers, all this research. I'm not going to go into any more of it, and I'm just going to dig into the plan. We came up with 25 recommendations. And they're not cheap, but I think they're necessary. And in this, there are 5 primary components to this whole plan. Number 1 was dealing with parking and traffic. Number 2 was the pedestrian experience and safety. Number 3 was converting day visitors to overnight visitors. Number 4 is can we bolster the shoulder seasons? And then number 5 is better communications with residents. All of these came from locals and local businesses. And so here's what you need to do. And if you do this, I've been doing this for 41 years. And I've worked in 2,200 communities. It took me about an hour in Blowing Rock to figure out where the problems were. And I think you as a community have known about these for years, if not decades. And this is kind of like, well, if we haven't done a whole lot over the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years, here it is. This is time to do it. And so the very first thing I would do is I would create the Destination Blowing Rock team. And when I use the word destination, I'm not just talking about tourism. How do we make this a better destination to live in, to work in, or to invest in, and as a destination? The reason, and by the way, the cost for this, none. The lead role would be Town of Blowing Rock. And this committee, one thing, I speak a lot at municipal leagues. And one thing I tell councils all the time is councils are there to set policy, not run the day-to-day affairs of the town. That's why you have a city manager or town manager. And so this team is your selection committee because I'm going to give you some consulting that you need to do to get this all going. And so they would be a selection committee for anything like parking or like a downtown plan or wayfinding. And they would do all of this. So this is a group of people, and I'll show you this in a second, and they would work with on implementing this entire plan. So that way they represent, by the way, they probably represent all of these communities, all these organizations. So this is the team, and these are volunteers. This is not another nonprofit or anything, but these are the people that would actually sit there and work all this. I think it would be really tragic. You said, well, we have one selection committee for wayfinding. We have another one for downtown. We have another one for parking. We have another one for putting power underground, all of these things. We need to have one set of people because all these things have to integrate. And by the way, you have one chance to do it right. You're about to tear up Main Street. You have one chance when you put it back to do it the right way. And so this is who, generally speaking, would be on this team. And the whole reason for doing this team is because this is what I call the typical economic development express. You can see they're really clipping along there. But now that we have all these groups working together, you will go from that to that. And so that's creating this team. And once you do that team, we created a thing called the Destination Development Association, which I call Netflix for communities. It's all full of how-to videos. I would have that team sit down and watch this because we want doers, not directors. We want people that are on this team that are actually going to go out there and help sell it to locals. They're actually going to be involved in it, not just attend a meeting once a month or every couple of weeks. So that's there for them. And so that is for this team to sit there and watch this video, and there's more on it. So that's number one. See, that was pretty easy. Didn't cost a dime. Here we go. For the town, number one priority is the town needs to hire a public information officer or PIO. I was pretty shocked that a Town of Blowing Rock did not have one, considering how popular a destination you are. And now the cost for this is probably going to be $70,000, including taxes and insurance. Lead role will be Town of Blowing Rock. The reason here you go. This person is the conduit between the town and the Destination Blowing Rock team, and will steer the public outreach. One of the things we heard over and over and over and over is we don't feel like we're part of the process. We don't feel like we're being communicated with. Yet the Chamber does communications, the TDA does communications, the town already does a newsletter, but it seems like there's just not enough of an effort for this. And so you really need somebody that is, and here's your job description right there. Young, energetic, a great writer, good on camera, social media, video editing savvy, be the face of Blowing Rock. And this person will probably do more videos, because what happens is a lot of times the communication done through email, it ends up in spam folders, you just get overloaded. I'd rather see somebody that says on camera for 2 minutes just talking, okay, we just got the lights going out there on the highway and we've just lit up the tree in downtown, and just kind of do that PR effort for the locals. I think this is going to be absolutely critical when you start ripping up downtown to put doing utilities and things. But I think it's the one person, you know, I know you say now we have to hire another person. I mean, it could be a contracted position. I think it should be a permanent position. And I think it's going to be really, really important, especially over the next couple of years. I mean, even during COVID, you know, people in Charlotte were coming up here, you know, probably by the millions or hundreds of thousands to escape social distancing. There was less in Blowing Rock than if they would have stayed home. You know, but this is a PIO can help mitigate some of this. And I think that's going to be really important. They'll showcase upcoming events. They'll tell you about weather challenge. They may say, okay, the weather, getting to Blowing Rock this weekend. I mean, they'll talk about capital project schedules, improvements, what's open, what's closed, social media posts, monthly newsletter, video. I just think it's time for the town to actually do this. And this PIO would be the spokesperson for the police department, for public works, for parks, for the town manager, and for the council. And so I think that's really, really important. And so for that, we even have videos on how to do that. But I think that's something you should do. I think it should happen by as soon as like January or February, but it should happen right away. So that's number 2. Number 3, it's time to option properties, and I think this is already in the process. The cost is really none. When we talk about optioning properties, what that means is saying, hey, go to a property owner and say, we want to lock up this property at a set price for X amount of time so we could do our feasibility, initial engineering, and all of that. And this is for a 600 space parking garage. I've said that since I was here in June, and it still goes true. I've talked to other parking engineering firms that all they do is parking, and they agree. And so, I mean, you know, you need at least 2 to 5 acres. The bigger, the better, because it's easier to spread out. It's cheaper to spread out than it is to go up. Hopefully, you could do it in one location, and I'll get into reason for that. Is we're going to have a trolley system that's going to get people from there to downtown. It has to work every 15 minutes. It can't be going to the Holiday Inn and Tanger outlets and making all these stops. It's too long. If it's more convenient to just drive downtown, they'll do it. And so hopefully we can get in one location. It needs to be within a 3-minute drive of downtown. And you can stretch it out to 5. So a trolley, and this is done from research in Greenville, South Carolina, in Gatlinburg, in Springdale, Utah. I could name 20 places that have trolley systems, and they found the cutoff is 15 minutes. If I can't catch a trolley within 15 minutes, I'll just drive. And it defeats our whole purpose of encouraging people to park outside of town. And by the way, this parking structure shouldn't be in town. I got lots of comments saying, why don't we just build up more levels on the parking garages we own? And quite frankly, I think you'd start losing your views. I think the idea is to get people out there. And you'd still have all those people on Main Street and Sunset, 221. And so I think that's really important. And the reason for 5 minutes, so if it's 5 minutes, minutes from the parking garage to downtown, 5 minutes to offload and load, and 5 minutes back is 15 minutes. That's why it needs to be pretty close. And then, there you go, as close to 321 as high as possible. You know, I could say Valley Boulevard, but it drives me nuts that before you get to Blowing Rock, it's Blowing Rock Boulevard, but in Blowing Rock, it's Valley Boulevard. So I just refer to 321. And so then, once you do that, the next thing is engineering design. Now, it would probably have an initial cost of about $45,000. That's to go out there and do some initial, does this work? What is the groundwater situation? What is drainage going to be like? What's access and egress to and from the parking site? All of those things need done. Engineering design for the whole thing is going to be about 15% of the whole project. Your parking garage is expensive. It's going to be less than 12 million. You might get it for less than 10, but it's pretty expensive. And that is creating one that's beautiful, not just a concrete structure. That adds almost $600,000 to the cost. But if it's out there in 321 and their first impression of Blowing Rock is some big concrete monstrosity, that's not good. So this includes, and they say that cost is about $1,000 per parking space times 600 parking spaces. So this would be your initial input here or cost to get this going. And when we did all, you should have a total of 1,500 parking spots. And you don't. Right now you have 430 in town, and if we can get, you know, some additional ones, you're still going to be short. But this will give you 600. So this will get you up to 1,000, and we have a way to get a few more. And that's for long term. This, I think this would probably get you going for the next 10 years, but we don't know whether it's going to go, whether you're going to get busy or whether you're going to get less busy. We don't really know. Quite frankly, I think that you're going to see, you saw a big bump during COVID that I don't think you're going to see repeated. As people get out and travel further out, they're going to have more options than just hop on 321 and go to Blowing Rock. But right now they're just saying, let's just do the quick getaway. And that's why you saw a huge bump during COVID. And heck, the way it's going, we may never get over COVID. But there's that. So what they would do for this is initial site analysis. Does this work? Initial schematics, including facade design and cost estimate to build it. And it should be within 5% of the final. These people know what they're doing that do this. I'd also have them take core samples of this. I call it the mound. The town already owns it. Now, if you were just to put parking on top of that, it would accommodate about 40 spaces. Not going to accomplish anything. But if that could be, it's mostly probably granite. Could it be ground up? Could it be, I mean, you're not going to go out there and do blasting, I wouldn't think. But could you take that down and build a structure there? Maybe, who knows? But I'd have the engineering firm look at that site and see if that's possible. In that case, you could say, well, we want to put 300 spaces here on 3 levels because it's right there at Main and 321 and do a second site down there. We don't know. That's why you hire engineers to do this. Just to do this, to give you an idea, this is what we're talking about. It's about $23,000 and $500 per space. That's with beautiful facades. So this is a first-class parking structure. There's your soft costs. That's where your architectural engineering and all of that. And federal assistance, you know, the Fed government just released $1.2 trillion in infrastructure, sending billions of dollars to every state. Man, if I was in Blowing Rock, I'd be right on the top of that list over, you know, at the Capitol, making sure you get that. You can pay for all of this with one small portion of what the state's going to get from this $1.2 trillion, and they're working on more now. So anyway, there's a great opportunity. You might get more than $5 million. You might get well over that in doing this. So that's number 4. See, we're going pretty quick. Number 5. We also want the TDA, this is Tourism Development Authority, once again, also needs to hire a full-time person. I must say that most tourism, what we call them convention and visitor bureaus, mostly across the country, tourism development authorities that have the budget that you have in Blowing Rock would usually have 4 to 5 employees, and you're working with 2. And so what happens is you need somebody really dedicated to product development. That's all this stuff that we're talking about. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be judged by your product more than your marketing. And product brings people here all by itself. And when we talk about product, you're going to see some things, but it is things like parking garages. It's things like something to do after 6 o'clock in Blowing Rock. Things like that. And so we also believe they need somebody too to work. So your local PIO, they're going to be the communication link to your local residents. This is your local link to your visitors, people living in Charlotte or Atlanta or wherever they're coming from. And so they would also do, for visitors, traffic weather alerts. They would do special promotions. They talk about special events, parking, all of those things, up-to-minute parking situation. They could be on Twitter or anything, say, right now our parking's full downtown, you need to park in the garage, or this lot has 10 spaces. I mean, this is going to be a big job. And they would manage all the social media channels. They'd manage all your press inquiries, would assist in content management. And so having that extra person, I think, is going to be a huge benefit for them to be more effective. It does not mean they're going to bring more people here in the middle of the summer. But if we could bring more people here in January, February, March, April, May, November, and December, that would certainly be helpful. And if we make it an easier experience, this person can help encourage people to come during those months. I mean, I'm staying out at Chetola, and it's fantastic. We're in December. It may snow tonight, I heard, but it's been, this is a great time of year to visit, I think. And that's what that person is for. So there's your first 5. Number 6, here's where you need to hire a consulting firm to come up with the entire parking and shuttle action plan. I've given you all, here's what you need to do, but I don't know all the details of how much does a trolley cost, how much is the fuel cost, is it going to be natural gas, is it going to be, these are people, they eat, live, and breathe transportation. That's all they do. To do this is probably about $120,000. There are lots of grants available out there right now. This would be CDBG, Community Development Block Grants could handle this. But this is going to be a big deal. And one thing we did is we did initial revenues. This is what I figured from before. I have had 2 companies look at them, and they thought are guessing that if you're at 40% annual occupancy, and we even looked at occupancy by when your hotels have 40%, we can't expect the parking garages to have more than 40%. So we actually looked at it compared to overnight visitors, but they need to verify this out because this is all they do. We even looked at revenues, 1.37, 1.3 million a year. And then this is per parking structure in town. And the reason it's fairly low out there is because I had it at really low occupancy, thinking downtown would fill up first. Hopefully we can flip that. But there's also a company called WGI. I do not get paid by them. I don't really know anybody there. They just happen to have an office in Charlotte, and this is what they do. So they do engineering, design, planning studies, restoration. They do all this type of work. And they sent me a copy of their 2021 outlook for building parking structures. And what really struck me was the least expensive state in which to build a parking structure in the U.S. is North Carolina. So that was like, whew, good news. The challenge is, if anybody knows, construction costs have been going through the roof because we're seeing a 40-year high in inflation right now. But that's all included for you. So what they will include is they will look at the parking cost structure. How much do we charge people? And right now our preliminary was $2 an hour up to 4 hours in downtown. If you want to stay longer than that, go pay $1 an hour up to 5 hours. So no more than $5, and you can stay out there for 24 hours. So they would look at that. That's kind of what we're looking at so far. You can even sponsor parking garages inside. Nothing hanging on the outside. But we've realized that working with several Olympics, when people go into parking garages, they don't remember what floor they're on. They don't remember numbers or colors. But if they're on the McDonald's or the Coca-Cola or the Budweiser floor, they remember that for sure. And so you could actually do, what they do is they paint murals inside the parking garage so it's not visible from the outside, and do that. So they could, you could have the Chetola Resort floor. or the Blowing Rock floor would be even really great, you know. I'm sure the mayor would love to sponsor that. But anyway, the other thing we want them to look at is employee permits. Wouldn't it be great if an employer said, okay, we can have our employees park out there, and rather than pay the $5 a day, maybe the employers get a break and they pay $2 a day or $3 a day, and they buy the parking for their employees. That would incentivize the employees to park in the parking garage. The employer's paying for it, and they'll be more likely to park there than they would in town. So that would be part of this. Parking management system is really important. The days of having meters with dimes and quarters and nickels is over. So nowadays, we have parking management systems that are basically online. However, if somebody is not online, they don't have a smartphone, every block has a little kiosk. A lot of them have solar panels on it, so they're battery operated. And this is Passport. They just happen to be the one I'm most familiar with. So Passport Parking, they come in, they set the whole thing up. Now, somebody told me during all of this research that they came out and said you don't have enough parking spaces for them to come out and put it up at free. So you may say, okay, then what can we help pay for the cost of you to set it up, and then you'll manage it. So there are ways to get them, and I talked to them about it, and they said they'd love to do it. They'd also manage the parking structure. Now all of a sudden it's worth their effort to come into a small town like Blowing Rock. But there's, even when it comes to enforcement, what's interesting is enforcement is done digitally, so that when somebody, first of all, if you were to buy time at Passport, I'm just using them as one example, there's like 5 companies, 6 companies out there. What happens is if I say, okay, I want to buy 2 hours worth of parking, at 1 hour and 45 minutes, I'm going to get a text that says your parking is going to expire in 15 minutes. Would you like to add another hour? And we do that up to the 4 hours you're allowed to park in downtown. And so, and then once you exceed your time limit, it says, here's all the parking that expired at these half-hour increments. So parking enforcement, and if somebody pulls into that space and redoes it, it automatically kicks them off. Does that make sense? So it kicks them off that they're already gone. But this way, parking enforcement is much easier. But in the case of Blowing Rock, you probably have 2 or 3 or 4 parking enforcement officers, not one person marking tires. You don't need to do that anymore with this system. And so they get into, there it is, real-time enforcement on the go. And one thing I think is going to be really important, so we've got all of these things. Let me get down through this. I thought it was going to take me right there. Is when it comes to parking enforcement, we don't have to do this anymore. Because I think you actually have to enforce your parking. We talked to dozens of employees who knows the town never enforces parking tickets. They just don't ever pay them because they know the town's not ever going to go after them. Therefore, what's the point? I mean, what's the point if you don't? So I think you do need to enforce it. And this way you'll be able to do it. And it's not like people don't have a warning. They're going to get a text. Your parking's about to expire. Your 4 hours is about up. So this works really well. And this will be a great addition for you. And it would include also private parking partnerships. And I think this would be really great. I believe that the churches and other places in town could actually earn money by renting out their parking spaces, except when they need them for their congregational, for Sunday gatherings or whatever they are. It doesn't always have to be churches. But you could have a post in front of each one of these. There's no meters. What is a little post? I'll get into that in a minute. But even here, what you could do, and I always said I loved Rumpel Church because it says, hey, you can park here except during these hours. And what's really nice about this is they might get 70% of the revenues. It's actually a good fundraiser for the church by allowing people to use the parking except when they need it. Because right now it's private parking. A lot of people use it anyway, but I believe you could pick up probably 300 spaces just doing private partner parking. And little posts like this, I think they should, I don't know metal poles in downtown Blowing Rock. I think they could be wood posts. I think they'd probably be about 4 feet tall. They would have a little angle on them, and on top of that angle tells them what the parking hours you have. We have 4-hour time limit, it's $2 an hour, and it's got a QR code if somebody doesn't have the app, so it has all the information. So you do have that. That's the one thing that comes with this, is you have to identify them. We have seen some towns actually paint that information on the curb. But then what do you do when it's snowing? What do you do? And so we think doing something along this line that would look attractive would be a way to do it. You could even go to empty lots like this and say, hey, the town would like to lease this from you for $1 a month. We'll just stripe it with some stripe. We'll clean it up and we'll put in 20 spaces or whatever there, and we'll revenue share with you. And then they have a 30-day cancellation. They can say, okay, I'm going to build something now, and say, okay, 30 days, we'll be out. And so I think sites like that, site like this, actually turns lemons into lemonade. Now, this one's not so easy to get to. I'm not so sure how that would work for public parking. But I think you could do private parking partnerships that would also expand your parking and provide revenues to these organizations. So then the next one is system usage education. Quite frankly, all of these recommendations I'm doing today, 2022 is your getting ready year. I mean, we've got a lot of stuff to do in 2022, and 2023 is when everything's going to start happening. Construction, parking garage, downtown, utilities underground. I mean, there's so much going on. This is your getting ready year. But I believe that you could start your parking in 2023, a year before you get to your parking structure, to build up to higher parking enforcement, to do education like this, to let people actually learn how to use it, particularly locals. So in that month, we wouldn't probably enforce it, but we go through and try to teach people, do little videos. Another reason why you have a public information officer. Also included in this would be the design of private parking signage. All over town, there's private parking. You can't park here, or signs like this one, or signs like this at the bank, or signs like this, all kind of scattered all over, or the ones I saw out there on 220 said, "Don't you dare park here." Which I actually thought was pretty good. But this would give you some continuity, so when somebody's driving through town, they see a similar look and feel to the private parking where there's no public parking allowed. So they would design that. And I hope that they design something that's pretty attractive, like you might see here, that's in the character of Blowing Rock. So this is all in this one contract. And then, of course, they're going to be talking about the trolley system, the vehicles, management, operations. I talked to the people, Walnut Creek, California. They do onboard advertising inside their trolley, and it runs from, if anybody knows that area, that Bay Area Rapid Transit. BART runs out to Walnut Creek, but Walnut Creek is a huge shopping destination. And so what they did is they created the free trolley, and it's about 15 minutes, once again, that circulates from the BART station into downtown and back. They make about $200,000 a year with onboard advertising on the inside, and I'll show you that. I mean, this is the one, the private one I saw here in town, went, oh, they do have a trolley system, and then I was told, well, that's private. Or you could go to Greenville, South Carolina. This is the trolley system. Towns everywhere doing this. These are rubber tire trolleys. They're not on tracks. And then you would put this on your parking tab. This is in Springdale, Utah. By the way, their population there is 500. And they have a trolley system that runs people between their downtown and Zion National Park. And so that's all part of this. And then they would even look at, trolley revenue streams. And that would be things like, this is Walnut Creek again. If you want to put brochures there, they have room there, and you pay. People pay to have their brochures there. Or they can do advertising up there in these panels. And I took this picture when they were just setting it all up. And so there's ways to do that. And then, of course, besides the revenue streams, there'd be trolley stops and locations. Quite frankly, I think it ought to be right about where this angle in parking is right there. I mean, so you come up Sunset Drive and you turn and it's right there. It's a wide enough spot. But they would look at that to see, would that work? And you do need a physical trolley stop. One thing you have with the Apple Cart is it took me days just to find the two signs, and they weren't turned anywhere, and it said Apple Cart. And I thought, is that like a food truck that sells apples? I mean, I had no clue as a visitor when we did the assessment. So you need an actual stop. It needs to be covered so that even in the winter, people will be incentivized to use the trolley over parking in town. And so I think that's really, I took that one in Gatlinburg. It doesn't have to look exactly like that, but it would fit the town. And then also the frequency, the operating times and frequency. These trolley stops, the trolley needs to really run from about 8 o'clock in the morning till about 10 o'clock at night. And it needs to do it year round. It can't, or if there's a certain time like, Monday or Tuesday in December and 75% of the parking out in town is free, then you could put park in town, at $2 an hour or whatever. But you could, there are times when you may say, we don't have anybody at the parking garage, we're just gonna let people park in town. I don't think that'll ever happen. But we also need to do that. It needs to be consistent so if somebody's working, they can count on the trolley being there. That's the point. Otherwise, they're going to say, I'm just going to drive. And it'll defeat the parking deck. So there you go. So this is, you probably start this beginning of 2023, maybe in March or April is when you would start doing paid parking. And that would give you like 9 months or 8 months of revenues that you can use to start kickstarting, getting staffing up and everything for this parking solution. Does that make sense? Okay. Number 7 in this is the other big one. This is the second big plan. And this one is also right about in there. And this is where you get into urban planning, architecture, and those types of things. And this plan includes, first of all, removal of parking on Main Street. If there's one thing I would tell Blowing Rock to do, I'd say get rid of the parking on Main Street. Now, that's 85 spaces. I went out and counted them. It's 85 spaces, and there are several reasons for doing this. First of all, I couldn't believe how, I'll never forget when somebody went up to the police chief and said, Chief, thousands of people are almost getting killed every day in Blowing Rock. Luckily the word was almost. But I couldn't believe how often I saw people walking between cars out into traffic. And we want downtown to be about people, not cars. And so just one church or two churches alone could make up losing 85 spaces. Hopefully we'll have the parking garage or some of this going by the time you lose these, because we're talking a little more than a year. But I really believe, and I'll show you why, another reason why. But all of this, I would just get the cars, you still have traffic, but I would just get the parking there. You'd eliminate jaywalking, and I'll show you how we do that. You would, you know what? I was here for 4th of July. The first year you've ever closed off Main Street like that, I thought that was a resounding success. There was probably approximately 4,000 people lining Main Street, no cars. People had no problem parking across 321 and walking up the hill. 4,000 people roughly. I mean, it was a huge, huge success. It just showed me you could do this in Blowing Rock. You could do this. You could make downtown about people, not cars. And so in that stretch of getting rid, there's 85 spaces. So if you did that, then what you could do is you could widen your sidewalk 6 feet on the Kilwin side, the east side of the road. You could widen it about 3 feet on the opposite side, plus put in a 3-foot bike lane. Wouldn't it be great if you had bike lanes? Wouldn't it be great if you can put a 2-foot planter between the sidewalk and the street. So you have a wider sidewalk, you have a planter there, and then you have the street. So there's better division. And I'll show you, I actually had a friend of mine do a rendering for you. So you could do that. You could do bulb outs at intersections where more people can gather when they're waiting for a light to change to get across. And bulb outs where it extends out a little bit. But I just keep thinking that if you could do this, with nice wide sidewalks, I mean, that was another problem you had. People would be more willing to walk in the street and dodge cars than they were willing to dodge strollers and too many people on the sidewalks. And so I think would be fantastic. And if you even looked at it from overhead, you can see this side is a little bit narrower and there's a bike lane just on the outside there. But wouldn't it be great if you did this, that you had more room for people so it was a better pedestrian experience? And I have to tell you that we have worked with many, many towns where people complain, if you take away the parking, you're going to kill my business. Not true. It's not true. We've seen, I can give you case history after case history after case history, that their sales actually went up because we created wider sidewalks, more benches, outdoor dining. We created more reasons for people to spend time downtown rather than trying to get out of people's way. And so in this, you can see, if I zoom in even closer, we did landscape barriers there to eliminate jaywalking, but we put decorative crosswalks, even mid-block, because that's something you're missing now. You don't even have mid-block crosswalks. And so I think doing these kinds of things would just make your downtown back to the way it used to be. Just a quaint, pedestrian, people-friendly downtown. And so with this, the next one is decorative crosswalks. This is called street print or Duratherm process. These are not paver stones. This is stamped down in the asphalt. It's not paint. It's actually a vinyl, and it's stamped down about 3/8 of an inch. You can do snow removal over this, and it lasts more than 20 years. You can have whatever design you want, because I think your crosswalks, even though they have some of that look in some of them, I mean, that's so nondescript. It's just easy to barrel through these intersections. And so it needs to stand out a little bit more. And you can even see here, you can almost see where it dips down right in there. And they can do whatever design you want. You could have blowing rock, you could have it just look like pavers like this, which might be more in keeping with the historic nature. The other thing you could do besides those crosswalks is have your street trees could be out in the median. If I go back to that, you notice where the planter was out there? We actually moved the street trees out there so you have more ADA access on the sidewalk and you have room for things like outdoor dining. And now I've heard people, I was working in Greenville, South Carolina, when merchants complained about putting in street trees. This was like in the early 90s. And yet, this is downtown Greenville today. Nobody's complaining about their street trees. Their revenues skyrocketed because of them. It created shade in the summer and they light them up in the winter. And they cull them out every 20 years. They'll cull one out. And they're in these culverts that go down underground about 7 feet to keep the roots from uprooting sidewalks. So that's a cool thing. That'd be included this. Also in here would be bike racks. Stroller parking areas. That's one thing we notice. These people people are here with their families. They go into a restaurant, there's no place to put a stroller. Wouldn't it be great if you had a parking structure? You might have a volunteer there, or a stroller parking area where people can set them there while they're going into a restaurant. Even things like bike racks, and you can make them creative. I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, there's all kinds of things you could do to add some culture. This one uses this device. I don't know what that is there. But anyway, I thought that was pretty cool. So you can do some fun things with bike racks to make them actually decorative. I don't know that any of these are good fit for blowing rock. I just want to show you examples of how you can be creative. And so this plan would include all of this stuff. If we go through all of this list here, this is a big plan, and this needs to be done so that when you start tearing up your streets, this is how you put them back. I do believe you should keep going with outdoor dining. I think, if I remember right, somebody told me the town allowed it during COVID, but it's going to take it away after COVID. I'd never take it away. I've worked in ski resorts where in the middle of the winter, people out there with radiant heaters, wearing ski gear, eating outdoors. And so I would always allow cafe dining along your sidewalks. And I would probably do it on one side, not both sides. Your sidewalks aren't wide enough to do both sides, even when you expand them. But we even have a video that you could watch that tells you all about how to do this. But I think that's really important for the future of Blowing Rock, is to allow those. And so I hope you keep doing cafe dining. These are cool things where we put the planters and the people are back behind it. There's just all kinds of things you can do to make this about people. So you can see street buffers, you see I put a few things up there. I won't go into more details on this right now. But, just little places like this would be fantastic. And I actually believe that beer and wine should be allowed outdoors. You do have it stationed off, but not hard booze. So there's ways you can even get around that. That's all would be in this plan, is doing all of this type of stuff. I even think in your downtown you ought to have dog dishes. I see people walking their dogs up and down your Main Street. That needs to be about people. The other thing in this plan is a zoning overlay that would be on Main and on Sunset Drive. And really, this is to keep out chains and franchises. I'll never forget when I was working in Deadwood, South Dakota, when Dairy Queen came into right in the middle of their downtown. Historic 1860s gold rush downtown with a Dairy Queen. The town just went berserk. A Subway tried to do this in Springdale, Utah. And so I say right now, the more successful your downtown is, the more likely you are to see a Dairy Queen, a Subway, a McDonald's, or some franchise in your downtown. Now, I think like Mellow Mushroom, or I think a couple of those might be franchises. I think you're fine. I just want you to restrict that happening to you. I really don't. The last thing you ever want is to gentrify your downtown and ruin what makes it unique. And as visitors, we don't want those things. No offense, I eat at all of them. But we're here for what's unique to you. And I think doing a zoning overlay would be a smart move just on those two streets. Okay? And then finally, we have facade improvements, awnings, benches would be fantastic. I couldn't believe how often I saw people sitting on planters, leaning against other people's cars. Because there's not enough seating downtown. And so that's really important. And here's another thing is women account for 80% of all consumer spending. I'm waiting. Usually there's a guy in the audience that pipes up about now.
It's 100%.
No, 100%. Yeah, they say that's all. But take a look at this photo, and this was not staged. What do you see? All I have is, this is my wife posing here, 2 words for you, think benches. This town needs probably 30 or 40 more benches in your downtown. And you need them against the facade facing out. Every facade is like a front porch swing. And that's really, really important. But by creating wider sidewalks, you can do things like this. Or you can also extend window displays to exterior businesses, or to exterior spaces. And some of your businesses do this, but they have a real challenge finding the room to do it. So we believe in doing things like this. It just helps pull people inside. It's a great teaser. And we're not talking about folding tables piled with stuff. It's putting actual window displays in exterior spaces. So, all of these things. Then, another one that would be in this plan is we would love to see an amphitheater at Memorial Park. So we'll just tear down the playground all the time. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Over near, there is the horseshoe pits. You know what we're talking about now. Over here by the horseshoe pits, wouldn't it be great if you had a stage, kind of like that, a little plaza area in front of the stage. You could put tables, chairs, yoga mats there, and then you have benches and seating there. So this would seat about 150 to 250 people. And then in the back there's a little projection booth. You can do movies on the square. Movies in the park, I should say. And you could do yoga on Wednesday mornings during the summer months for visitors and locals alike. But having a place to sit, you could grab ice cream, go over there, sit there. But if you want people to spend the night, people spend the night where there's things to do after 6 o'clock. That's kind of a problem in Blowing Rock, since you have businesses that seem to roll up at 5 o'clock. And you do have restaurants, but if you want to be able to spend the night, we don't want to go out, eat dinner, and then go back to our hotel room and watch TV because the town is shut down. And so if you can start creating little activities, so there might be music in the park, there might be cooking demonstrations, there might be artisans in action, there might be exercise, there might be whatever. And even if there's nothing going on, you still have a place for people to come and sit. It creates another, and you've got the playground there, you still got your tennis courts, everything stays there, and this is already almost shaped like it. You know, so you probably do it curved rather than I did it kind of 3 angles there. But so I think something like that would be absolutely fantastic. It's another place that you can activate, particularly in the evening hours, particularly during the summer months. And then we'd love to see the town take back Main Street. And what we're talking about is the Department of Transportation may have a real challenge taking away South Main Street, am I getting that right? Between where Chatola is and 321 up to where 221 is. States like their highways to be connected by highways. But from there all the way down Main Street, you could easily close this off and have the town control it. Now, I think Shane made a comment earlier today that the Department of Transportation right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, is kind of like what highways can we get rid of, in essence. You know, and so, but I think you need to be in control. That allows you to do your outdoor dining. It allows you to do what you want to do as a town without having a regulatory agency over. And this is most of your commerce, you know, is right here. So that still leaves the state highway out, you know, to connect the two. Make sense? But I think the town, you already maintain it anyway. Why not be in control of it without having to ask somebody permission on what you do and how you do it? I think that's really, really important. The last thing in this plan is, you know, they spend a lot of money doing pavers right here in this retail development. You know, pavers cost about $11 a square foot. We have paver stones right here. I mean, right in front of Town Hall, we did like Flagstaff. I live in Arizona. There's something, but flagstone right there, or even out in front of Brahms. So I have to tell you, one thing I have not brought up before, but it bothered me a lot, was that when you have a new development come in like this, I think it's a beautiful building, but all it is concrete. I feel like I'm in downtown Charlotte. I hope that in this plan you create ordinances that don't allow a bunch of concrete out in front of beautiful buildings. I just think that's just not who you are, is about more concrete structures. If you're going to spend $500,000 or more making the parking garage look great, why wouldn't you do that on your walking services downtown? I think it's a beautiful building. I think the business in there is really great. But I just thought, why did you cheap out on that one thing and just add more concrete in a historic downtown? So there you go. There's your 2 big plans. The rest of this will go pretty quick. I would also, number 8, I hope that you do the full gateway plan. This was about $400,000, and what we're talking about is down at Sunset Drive and 321. I mean, I know that the plans have been drawn up. I think they're excellent. I mean, all of this architecture, you already have it in downtown. It needs to be out there. And if any business says it's going to hurt their business, I beg to differ with them. It's not. It's not. It's going to draw more attention. The whole idea for doing this is to draw attention to Sunset as the primary way to get to downtown Blowing Rock. Right now, one thing you have is people, there's no wayfinding on 321, directional signs between Lenore and Boone. None. I mean, others says, oh, Blowing Rock Fire District, a lot of good that's going to do us, right? There's hardly any. And so that is a major challenge. You have no wayfinding, and you have no way to get people's attention. You know, I mean, I happen to know where Sunset is last night. You know, I came in. But even when I asked my navigation system to take me to Chatola Resort, it wanted me to go right through town and turn left on that part of Main Street. And I didn't. I wanted to come in down. I wanted to come through downtown and see it. And I'm glad I did. It was gorgeous. But I just think you need that really, and it sets the standard to what you look and feel like. This is a gateway location, and it needs to look like a gateway. You know what? If a car's parked there, do we complain because it's blocking our view? Whatever you put up is not going to be any taller than that truck. And so I just think doing this full plan is something the town needs to do. I mean, the TD, I think you agreed to fund it. The plans have been drawn up. You already have the bookends right in the middle of downtown. I mean, I just think you need to do it. And I think that needs to do over here, the river crossing as well. I mean, let's get people funnel up. There's a lot of commerce on that street, and if we can funnel up people, that's I don't know if you want people on. Okay, which way is that? That's South Main is that way. I don't think you want people coming in that way. It's residential. It's narrow. I mean, there's already big mirrors there. I think we need to funnel people up Sunset, and this would call attention to that, and would also say you're in Blowing Rock, because nothing else does. There's no signs out there. So, okay, here's a real expensive one. This one would be maybe $500, and that might be stretching it a little bit. And I don't know, you may have already done this, but this I brought up in the assessment that I saw, this is my wife, but I saw people always, they would never walk down those steps because they could get killed if they tried to. I mean, they're trip hazards, they're not full of gravel. So you have these, so I just think that would just be such a simple thing to do, is go out there and fill those. And that's only until you do another upcoming project. But right now, that would be just a simple, easy fix that you could do anytime. I also believe you need to move that Blowing Rocks, I call it the selfie sign. Costs probably $17.50 if we had to mount it on its own post, but that's this sign. I can't believe how often I saw people up there climbing on pavers and stuff, trying to get a picture of them in front of that sign with cars and trucks and stuff parked there. That sign should be moved. I have a perfect location for it. Why not put it right there? Move the tree and put it right there. It's a beautiful garden area. That's on the back of the restrooms. It's right there in the park. You've got room that people can get enough far away that they can get a selfie of the sign. You'd lower it down so it's just above the landscaping right there. I think would be an excellent location. It's an easy fix. And then add that hashtag to that sign that says share your experience, hashtag love Blowing Rock. That's the hashtag I'd use. And so I think that would be an easy fix. Put it somewhere where people can share their experience. It's a great experience here. So that'd be easy. Number 11 is one I just added. And I'm not even sure Tracy and Amanda have even seen this yet. But this comes to the marketing from the TDA, where you actually tell people when's the best time to visit in the marketing. It could be by month, it could be by week. It would talk about seasons, what to bring, what to wear, 10-day weather forecast. That would be mainly online, but what you can expect weather-wise in January, February, March, April, what road conditions you can expect, even parking in Blowing Rock. This is what that one person would be doing, but you could also add it to like websites. So right here, right now it says plan your trip. This is their website, and it's got winter, spring, summer. It's got all the seasons in there. But when you get into it and you go to the winter page, wouldn't it be great if a page came up and said, okay, so you want to visit in winter, here's what to expect. Here's where you can get a 10-day weather forecast, a link. And maybe you just have a widget there that just tells you the 10-day weather forecast. But it would actually have what to expect before you sell them on the activities. And in the summer, that could even include parking, where to park, how to park. Even up here under the, which one is this? It's under See and Do. You could put in there things to consider planning your trip. And they do actually have over on this side, there is a planning. And in there you could put what to do, what to wear, what to expect. This is where you could address things like parking up front. So that, let's say 2022, it's coming right up. we're not going to solve anything in 2022. You're probably going to have another busy summer. You have that Apple Cart, and it runs. I don't know what days it runs. I never could really get any information, and I was here for a month. But here you could say, if you park at Tanger Outlets, if they'll let us do that again, and we have shuttles that run every however often, and then let people know before they get here that there's an option, rather than getting here and then trying to figure it out. Another idea that I thought of would be like, you could do even a thing where you pick your season, pick your passion. Where I thought, could we do a thing in Blowing Rock where you said, pick your season, and then you pick whatever season it is. And you could even put whatever months you would qualify under these seasons, you know, and then what they do is they'd pick a season. It would take you to another page that say, now, what's your passion? If you pick the winter months, you would list the things that there is to do here. And over here, you'd say, well, here's what you can expect that time of year. So this is another way to do it. Now, and what's nice about doing it online is that, and by the way, I really simplified this. I did this in like 10 minutes. And so you make it look a lot better than that. But it's just a quick way to be helpful on your website, social media channels. And even in the guide, you can't put 10-day weather forecast, but you can tell people what to expect, where to park. So once you say, welcome to Blowing Rock, if you're coming during the peak season, here's some parking tips for you. So I think there are some things we could do as a town, as a TDA, to help do that. So that, you know, before we get into all the area attractions, we say, look at all there is to do here. Now let me tell you how to best utilize your time. And that's where you could head them off about parking and things for this coming year before they even get out here. Okay, number 12. Establish a cultural affairs committee. This came from somebody that said, why don't we do a cultural affairs committee? And I thought this would be awesome. The money for creating a cultural affairs committee is nothing. $30,000 is so they can bring in artisans, they can bring in musicians. If we have a couple places where these people can play, set up shop, why don't we have a committee that's dedicated to doing that? I got to tell you, in Cannon Beach, Oregon, population 2,500, they have a $10,000 a year budget. They paid this magician $35 to be there on a Friday and a Saturday. He had to be there for 4 hours, but he made a ton of money on tips. So they just seeded it to get the entertainers there, whether it's magicians, whether it's musicians, whether it is people making fly fishing ties, whatever it is, having artisans in your downtown. You have a ton of culture here. Good luck finding outside of Brom. You know, I'll never forget when I saw a musician over at Speckled Trout, and it's like the whole town was like, let's go over there. Their patio was crammed full of people. But I just thought, if you can start doing this and actually bring downtown to life, particularly in the evening hours, people will say, we got to spend the night. I mean, I can even see somebody coming with 2 or 3 telescopes and doing stargazing things during the summer at night. Anything you can do that would do that. That's in Asheville, of course. This is in Greenville. And so all of these kinds of things. By the way, you notice no amplified music. But having this kind of entertainment here, I think would be fantastic. And give you some cultural depth. Then I would add some brochure distribution racks, some additional ones. I saw this in North Platte, Nebraska, mounted right there. I thought, man, we could use a few more of those around here. I always say visitor information should be working 24/7, and it does at the visitor center. But if you go out to the App Mountain Visitor Center out there, which says Regional Visitor Center, they don't have any Blowing Rock stuff outside. It's just App Mountain. But I just thought you could do it there. You could do it at Tanger Outlets. It's just adding one of these. And it might have a state guide, the Blowing Rock guide, maybe a parking guide, or who knows. But just, I'd have these in a few other locations around. And by the way, before people go somewhere on vacations, they use printed materials only 35% of the time. Once they arrive, printed materials are number one. Even more than the internet. Because once we arrive, we can take that brochure and we're in a restaurant, in the car, on the parkway, whatever we're doing, that's when these come into play. And TDA's done a good job where you see the Blowing Rock signs, but we'd like to see these in a couple other locations. And then number 14 on this is wayfinding. So we talked about a parking plan, we talked about a downtown development plan. The third element to that is a wayfinding system. It probably costs about $40,000 to design the system and probably about $140,000 to develop and put in the system. And this would be decorative signs. And now somebody told me that you couldn't do decorative signs out on the highway. Well, I'll let you know that when I came out on 320 last night, Hickory has 3 decorative signs on 321. So when they tell you you can't have any on your 321, somebody's not telling you the right story. I mean, if they can do it, I don't know why you can't do it. So, but they should be decorative. You know, this is in Appleton, Wisconsin. That's like $750. It's mounted on an existing power pole. It's got an aqueous coating graffiti. Ice doesn't stick on it. You know, but any type of signs. These signs are a little more expensive because they're freestanding. That's up in North Adams, Massachusetts. I mean, these are just samples of wayfinding signage you could use. And you need really 3 sets. Number 1 is vehicular wayfinding. And I said this when we did the assessment. All the signs in Blowing Rock tell you how to leave Blowing Rock. Every one of them. 221 this way, you know, Boone that way, Hickory that way, or Lenore. I mean, everything is about how to leave town. And so I think doing this, you also need pedestrian wayfinding. It doesn't have to be like this, but I got to tell you, Disney would not, I don't know what they would do if they didn't have wayfinding. It might be signs like this, maybe in smaller scale. Like these. But this is how people, lots of visitors, they might by accident, they don't even know you have Broyhill Park down there. Wouldn't it be nice if we could spread people out a little bit so we're not all stuck in front of Kilwins? Which, good news for Kilwins during the summer. But another thing that's important to point out is navigation systems are not a substitute for wayfinding. Navigation systems, we'll say, Siri, tell us how to get to Brum because we know it exists. Wayfinding signs will tell us about things that we didn't even know you had. You know, like even parking, public restrooms, visitor information, you know, the little 1888 museum. Did I get that year right? Things like that. And wayfinding plays a role in your branding efforts. It can look historical, like your town. It's a major component in your marketing. It reinforces a positive experience. It increases spending. I mean, it educates visitors and locals about what you got, builds community pride, and it's as much as a science as it is an art. So only experts at this. And so when you do a system, it includes build-ready fabrication documents. So it's not like they design the system, then somebody has to do fabrication documents, and then you bid it out. They give you the system, you just bid it out. And you can even phase it. And there are tons of transportation grants to do wayfinding. But you need it on 321, and you also need it in town. If I go way back to creating that Destination Blowing Rock team, we had a representative from DOT on there. That's why. But whatever you do, it can be decorative. It can even include signage when we get to places. I mean, this is in Bracebridge, Ontario, you know, and there you go. If you want to see Hickory, you know, there you go. There's one of them. So we've got a video that will tell you how to do this step by step. Issue RFQs. RFQs are requests for qualifications. Always get the most qualified. If you don't like the way they do things, you don't like their procedural, the way they would format it, or the price try, go to number 2 on the list. Like I said, you have one chance to get it right. And people we've worked with, I've worked with Axia, Todd Mayfield, I've known him for 20 years. He's down in Florida, does a lot of wayfinding. And by the way, this is an expertise all by itself. Don't hire graphic design firms and architectural firms unless they have people dedicated to what we call environmental graphics. Corbin Design is one of the biggest in the country. They're based out of Wisconsin. This is Cloud Geshen. They're based out of Philadelphia. There's like 6 companies in the country that do this. And by the way, when we did the assessment, I kept doing slides like this. Like we didn't even see, we drove by Tanger 3 times before seeing it. Now that the leaves are gone, it was a piece of cake. But during the summer, we didn't even see it there because the sign is tucked off the road and back in there. But we kept saying, you'd fix all these things. What did I say there? Oh, the sign up there is way too high. It was way above the viewing limit from a car, that parking sign on the pole. It would just fix all of these different issues we kept bringing up, and so there was a lot of these 5. There's number 5 again. These are starting to get pretty tired right now, and so this will fix a lot of that stuff we brought up then. Okay, number 15. Change Maple Street to one-way. Come on, really? This would cost probably $10,000 if you actually painted on the roads. But this is me trying to turn in there. I mean, that's ridiculous. It should just be one way from Main down to the post office and back out to Sunset, because that's just a nightmare. And there's a car there trying to figure out, well, wait a second, they're turning into the parking area. That was all confusing. Just simplify it. I mean, I just think we're trying to mitigate traffic flow. And that's one of the things that just create problems. That'd be easy to fix. Number 16, I would add new signs to restroom facilities. This would probably cost a couple of $100 because I want you to not do this anymore. Come on, you're not a second world, country here. I just thought, okay, you could spend $200 to do a nice sign. It could even be a digital sign, but I think it also needs to include a phone number if there's a problem. Now, I got to tell you, when we were here in the summer, we went into the restrooms once, and my wife came out and said, there's no more toilet paper in there. There's no number for anybody to call. Now, we went back there like 2 hours later, and it was somebody had already fixed it. So it wasn't a big thing to complain about, but wouldn't it be great if there was a car and we didn't have to use a bunch of red duct tape on everything? I'm going, come on. This is, you know what? I have a little quote I always say when it comes to tourism. Relieved visitors spend more. And so restrooms are an economic development tool. I was going to put in here to double the size of your restrooms, but I think the town is already working on that. But that still is really important because when we were there were lines, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. So do that. That's easy. Number 17, I would convert, street side parking to pedestrian access spaces. This one here, I got to tell you, when I saw this being done, I went, this is absolutely fantastic. As a matter of fact, I wish he would do the entire parking lot that way. But I walked into the store, this is last summer, and I congratulated him, and I said, that is so cool, you're going to make this all about people rather than parking. And he said he had to pay the city like $15,000. When you eliminate a parking space, you have to pay. Are you kidding? I would incentivize them to lose the parking spaces, particularly when you get a parking garage. Now, at the market, the way he's done a plaza, you notice he even covered the asphalt, up near the door so that you're not on the asphalt surface. I love the way it is. Now, I could understand him having that few parking spaces out there because he's a market. So, for instance, this morning, I went there to grab a breakfast sandwich. I could pull in, he had 4 or 5 spaces there, and it was easy for me to swing out and back out. But I don't know what it would cost him if he used to take this whole thing, once you have parking solved, right, a parking structure and everything, I would actually incentivize people and say, you know what, if you get rid of that parking, we're not going to charge you a dime. We want to make our downtown about people, not cars. And this is right there at the intersection to 221. And so I just think finding people, I wish all these parking spaces would go away. Their retail sales would go up. So if you put a sidewalk, a real sidewalk in front behind those cars, and then in that space you put in some trees, landscaping, tables, they don't even have to have a restaurant. I guarantee their business would go up. It wouldn't go down because they lost 3 parking spaces. I mean, I don't know how often, in the time we were there, and by the way, we actually bought stuff in Footsloggers. And when we went there was no parking there. I didn't have any problem. If a business ever comes up to you and say, you take away my parking, you're going to kill my business. Here's what you tell them. Are you telling me your business isn't worth walking a block for? Particularly if you have a trolley system that's going to dump people right in the middle of downtown. Every time we went to any of these businesses, we were parked out at a parking structure, or we found out where the locals park. We parked behind the school, which is a problem for them during school year. But I would love to see, this is right at an intersection. Make downtown about people, not cars. I would incentivize these businesses, or at least tell them, if you want to get rid of the parking, to make this about people, and you want to put some pavers there, you want to put some Catalina umbrellas and tables there, go for it. It doesn't cost you a dime. I would incentivize them. That one thing drove me crazy. The days of X amount of parking for X amount of square feet ended like 40 years ago. In the 70s. And by the way, it's not really fair when restaurants can start adding outdoor dining and everything, and they're not fined $15,000 because now they need more parking. I mean, just get rid of that. So, particularly when you get this parking situation taken care of. Number 18. Am I going to have to leave town really quick as soon as I'm done now? Yeah. So, add seating to Broyhill Park gazebo. I mean, we went down there. This wouldn't cost that much. It might be and by the way, when I put Town of Blowing Rock here, or Village Fund, that doesn't mean they have to pay for everything. That group in the beginning that takes up all these organizations, the lead role, because the Town of Blowing Rock owns it, is why they're there. That doesn't mean citizens have to pay for 100% of this stuff. I mean, in this case, it might be the Village Foundation, Chamber, it might be the TDA. So when you see these up here, that doesn't mean we want you, the citizens, to have to pay for 100% of the stuff. That's just who's taking the lead role, because they happen to own the streets, happen to own the parks, those kinds of things. But even when we were here, we grabbed like a lunch. We went down to Broyhill Park. There was like 2 or 3 benches in the whole park, none in the gazebo. And so we thought, well, come on, let's make this about people. I mean, it's gorgeous. It's one of the prettiest city parks we've seen anywhere. It's fantastic. And then finally, we're getting down there now. We got 6 left. We believe that there should be a business improvement district in downtown. What this is, and the cost to do this is about $60,000. Lead role will be Town of Blowing Rock. But we believe that the way this works is that cities should take care of curbside beautification, and downtown associations should take care of facades and facade side. The town can't technically give money to private business to enrich a private property, but through a business improvement district, they can generate funding that can be invested into private properties. I got to tell you that I'm here in December, and looking at your storefronts in December, I'm going, some of them don't look very good. And this would be a funding source to do that. For me to say, well, the tourism is paying their fair share. I think the chamber is paying their fair share. The downtown businesses that have the most to gain, I mean, granted, they're paying property taxes, they're investing in their properties, their inventory and all that, but I don't see them investing in the experience. And I think that downtown should be a public-private partnership. So I would love to see you create a business improvement district. This is usually done by companies. We've worked with Civitas. They're based out of Sacramento. They work all over the country. I've known John Lambeth for a long time. And when they develop these, they start talking to your property owners and business. They don't plop it on them. They go to them and say, look, how much money could we raise to bring more customers in your doors? And they might say, well, if we could do this and this and this and this, we would need $80,000 a year. Then they would create a business improvement district that would generate $80,000 a year. See what I mean? So it's done with the businesses, not done by the town and said, here, we're going to tax you now. But it's a way for businesses to get a pot of money that they could do to improve their businesses. I would issue RFQ, requests for qualifications for this. We've seen towns actually fund it, and then they get reimbursed for the first revenues that come in. So So there's a way to do that. And once again, what I've talked about is cities doing curbside beautification, merchants take care of facade side. You know, this is in Neenah, Wisconsin, population 5,000. That's before, that's after. Their retail sales went up 34% just doing that because they had a beautification. So, with that money, you could even hire people that they go down every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday and help take care of the landscapes. You know, it drives me crazy that everybody goes to the TDA like it's a pot of free money and want them to do everything. You know, and they still have 7 months they need to put heads in beds in town. And so I just think that downtown businesses should have skin in the game as well. And it doesn't have to be a lot. On that, then add decorative crosswalks down on 321. But before I do that, before I leave that one, is now we have the TDA, we have the businesses contributing. I think that's a really good mix and a really good marriage, you know, and so that's why I think the downtown business improvement district is really important. But that way they can help do snow removal, they can help do Christmas lighting. They have a pot of money that's their own. They can make improvements to downtown that will increase their sales. So with this one, this is down on 321. This intersection right here, probably, I don't know the cost of this. I left a couple of messages trying to get this, but this whole intersection should be decorative. Once again, there's no wayfinding on 321. And if you can make a decorative intersection there, we will see it. We're coming down a hill both ways. And we will see, it doesn't have to be that design, but these are all, once again, stamped in the asphalt. I mean, it can be whatever design you want. But I think doing decorative crosswalks, particularly, who knows, you made a parking garage right there somewhere. You know, I would love to see the property by the fire station. It's privately owned. We don't know what the deal is with that, but we still need to get pedestrians over here besides just the trolley. It's a great walk up the hill. But you could do whatever designs, you know, I mean, crazy stuff. And so we just think doing that there, you need to slow traffic down. It was a huge complaint from local residents. I don't know how often they complain to the police chief about traffic on 321. Well, I have to say, even last night when you start coasting down the hill, it's really easy just to go cruising right through that intersection. There's no traffic calming at all. So you need to do something that people go, what is that up there? You know, and I mean, and this should be on the intersections at Main and 221. It should be at Main and Sunset and down there on 321. You got to take the whole intersection and stamp an intersection like that. It just creates a focal point. It creates a we've arrived moment, and it slows traffic. And 21. This one's easy. I would love to see you start putting in at your gateways, share your experience. Now, I know the TDA has used Parkway Town. I respectfully think you need to promote Blowing Rock. Because the Parkway Town, first of all, the Parkway's almost 500 miles long, and I think, so I would love Blowing Rock. But I think you add that hashtag at your gateways and other places so people share their experience on a common platform. Because otherwise they're going to come and they go, I don't know, I'm going to say, I love Blowing Rock. They just make up their own because they don't know what yours is. It's a way to create a community of people sharing their experience. So that's an easy one to do. And so that's what you could do. You know, and you can put it at these gateways. It could be down below. It could be up above. I'd make it decorative. Just say, share your experience. Love Blowing Rock. Easy. And then number 22, almost there. You need low to moderate income housing like I can't believe. This is not something the town of Blowing Rock should do. I know the chamber is working with, what is it, the realty, the Association of Realtors, is it North Country or? High Country. High Country Realtors are already doing this. I just think it's really, really, really important for everybody that I'm just shocked that these two counties do not have a housing authority. When I put low mod housing, this is not low income housing. These people have to have jobs. It's low to moderate income housing. That's what that is. It looks nice. Now, you can make it look so it fits into Blowing Rock. There is HUD money for these. The way it works is with HUD housing that's housing and urban development, is developers build these, then they turn it over to the housing authority, and they're paid a 15% profit. So that's what's in it for the developers. They get 15%, and then it's turned over, and it makes it more affordable. And so that's one example. I mean, here's another example. And I'm not even so sure it should even be in Blowing Rock. If you had low mod income housing, I know where I'd put it. Highest and best use. It's got water feature there. It's right there. It's walking distance to downtown. You know, I just thought, man, could the liquor store be somewhere else? That is such a great location for some kind of housing that could be 3 or 4 stories. Now, I will tell you that talking to employees in your downtown, there are some professionals that work in downtown that would love to live in Blowing Rock, and they're being forced to commute. But most of your frontline workers say, we want to live in Boone. It's a university town. There's things to do there after 5 o'clock. See what I mean? So a lot of them are going to opt to be in Boone. There's Walmart, all the big, everything is there for them. So I'm not sure it has to be in Blowing Rock, but if there was a place, I can't think of a better place than that. I don't know where to put the liquor store. I'm not trying to kick them out. But I just thought, man, highest and best use of that would be something like that. But you need to push them to do that. That's something the counties need to do, and I was shocked it wasn't done. And I talked to university students that can't even afford housing at the university. You know, they're rooming 2 and 3 people to a small little room and stuff. I mean, they're just getting priced out of the market. So that needs to be a really high priority. Then the Legion Hill Park connector, I think that's roughly right around $1.2 million. I hope you do it. This does not compete with the amphitheater you do in town. I would love to see you have these 2 locations. And I would love to see a better connection down there. And by the way, if you did this right away, you could forget filling those steps, because now you have handicap access right here. That's what those walkways are right there. I think this would be a great thing. I don't have all the answers on funding of this, but I think it's ideal. Can you imagine having a cool place downtown? And can you do a little jazz festivals or any kind of events where you have 2 different locations? One might be geared more to kids, and one might be geared more to adults, depending on the day and whatever you're doing. But I thought the combination in that, talk about a great setting, would be fantastic. So I hope you go ahead and include this in your plan. You know what? If you're going to do this stuff, now's the time to do it. And then number 24, I also took a look at the History Walk system. I think that's right around, Charles, is it right around $300,000? I'm not sure what it costs to implement this. Mayor? 200,000. Okay, thanks. So I just thought this would be a really cool thing. Now, this is a tourism management plan. What I'm trying to do is create more activities in Blowing Rock that they can't do it all in a day. We're trying to get people to spend the night. And so this is that trail system. I think it's fantastic. And you know what's interesting is when you do trail systems like this, number one, it attracts the highest income visitors. Number 2, once we start learning about your history, we become loyal to you as a community. Most visitors aren't going to come to Blowing Rock. Let's go to Blowing Rock and learn about the history. But if they're here and they learn about your history, they're going to be more engaged in protecting your history, and they'll spread those stories. I loved reading the stories up in Brahms about Blowing Rock, and I think doing that throughout your town would be fantastic. And it's another 2 or 3 half-day experience. I mean, a couple hours that are another reason to come back to Blowing Rock, or another reason to spend the night, because there's so much to do. And then finally, my last one. is this one is something I've been fighting for all 40 years of my work in this industry. It's that lodging taxes all of a sudden are free money and everybody should be entitled to it. I just want to let you know that lodging funds are not grant funds. You have to understand, lodging taxes were implemented by lodging owners to provide a common marketing budget to put more heads in beds, as we call it in the lodging industry. It was formulated by lodging owners to create more marketing, and so that is really the purpose of it. Now, I totally get that I love the 1/3, 2/3 that you do in Blowing Rock. I mean, the TDA is funding parking lots and Brom and a lot of things because the experience is very important. Visitors taking up a lot of so I get all that. But I just wanted to make sure that people understand that this just isn't a pot of free money. Now, one thing I want to share with you is that I went through all their marketing. I went through I looked at the TV spots, I listened to radio commercials, billboard designs. And your TDA spends most of their money trying to put heads in beds during the shoulder seasons. I saw very, very, very little marketing that had anything to do with your peak summer months. I think a lot of your peak day trips are people telling their friends and family on Facebook, oh my gosh, I went to Blowing Rock, it was really cool, you got to go there. But doing this shop and stay, it's all about shop and stay. That's how you generate money. I mean, here's February. Elevate your winter. These are billboards that they've done. I mean, all of these things, even during COVID, I mean, this is really painful to see a tourism organization tell people to stay away. But they did the right thing. Stay home, travel later, visit virtually. And so I think that their marketing is not misguided. I don't think their marketing should be flipped to where they only have a couple $100,000 a year, because they still have, remember, lodging properties, we're not at 70% year-round yet. We're at 40% the first 4 months of the year, and 50% at the last 2 months of the year. And so that's it. Bottom line, if you do this, I added up all that stuff, including not just the planning. What would it cost to do wider sidewalks? What would it cost to do street trees? What would it cost to do this, that? I added up all of this stuff. It adds up to about $22 million. Now, that's sticker shock in a town of 1,300, but your average daily population here is probably closer to 10,000. But $22 million. If you wanted to build a 1,200-seat performing arts center, 35 to 40 million. If you wanted to build 7 baseball diamonds that are lit, 25 million. If you wanted to build a civic center, a convention center, anything like that, 25 to 30 million. There is nothing you can invest in that would have a greater return on investment to you as property owners than doing this. If you did this, and all of these integrate, you can't say, well, take that one out, we'll cut this one in half, we don't need to do that entry down there. They all integrate. That's why you have a team here to do all 25 of these. You'll eliminate the parking nightmare, I guarantee, within 48 months of today. You can have it built in 48 months. And that's slow, but that's the way the public process works. You figure a year, 2022, to get all the plans and all the studies and work on funding and everything. 2023 to get your permitting and all of that sewn up, the land purchases, whatever you need. And then 2023, 24 to get it built, you're going. So, everything. You would eliminate that. You would also reduce downtown traffic by 70%. And I had a traffic engineer look at your traffic flow. 70% during your peak months. I mean, that's unbelievable compared to what you have now. You will make downtown about people, not cars. And downtown will be half as crowded because we've connected them to Broyhill Park. We created wider sidewalks. We have places for stroller parking. We're being bike friendly for a change. All of these things. Chains and franchise will remain out of downtown. And your cultural offerings will attract the highest end visitors. And you will increase overnight stays and reduce the dependence on day visitors. And your shoulder seasons will be fuller, and Blowing Rock will not lose its soul. I think that's really the key thing, because if you became gentrified, like I've seen many towns, I got to tell you, we worked in Carmel, California. And we were brought there when Clint Eastwood became the mayor. And he became the mayor because he submitted a variance to have his chimney 4 inches above the maximum, and they turned him down. And he said, I'm going to go in there and change everything. Well, he was in there for one term and then left. But one thing that happened in Carmel, the town, not when he was in office, the town decided it didn't want any more galleries in its downtown because all the art was shipped out of state and the town didn't get sales taxes. So instead of our galleries, all of a sudden in Carmel, by the way, Carmel is one of the most beautiful beaches in the world. They had one person on the beach for every 100 people shopping in downtown. Now they have 70 people on the beach for every 100 people shopping in downtown. Downtown is no longer a draw because they got rid of their soul, which was the 4th largest arts community in the United States. And you go in there downtown, it's now full of Timberland shoes, Starbucks, Gucci stores, all the stuff we could find anywhere else at any high-end mall. They sold their soul, and they're paying the price. That's what we don't want to see happen here. And so, I think and here, bottom line, wouldn't it be great if you had half as many visitors spending twice as much money? Wouldn't that be great? That is the ultimate goal. Now, we can't turn people away, but we can start moving people into shoulder seasons. So, you will solve the parking. Remember, I started with those 5 things. You'll solve that. You'll make it pedestrian friendly. You'll see retail sales increase. You'll see your shoulder seasons increase. And you'll enjoy better communications. And you will keep it there. Those are the things that we heard from you as citizens. And when I work in other towns, I know 22 million sounds like a whole lot of money, but on the bigger scheme of things, it's not very much considering the dramatic change it can make in the quality of life for you as citizens. And that was it. So, any questions? I don't mind hard questions. One thing I do want to say, this is a draft. Tracy, Shane's, your town manager, the council, nobody's seen this. Because I wanted to get here in person in case there's questions. This is a draft. There may be some things here you say, Roger, we already got that one done. We already filled the steps. Okay, I'll take it out. Or I may hear comments that say, well, Roger, could you add one more in there? This will be done in the next 2 or 3 weeks. I think the timing of this is absolutely imperative because you're getting ready to do these major changes in your downtown. If you're going to start tearing up your streets, we need communication. We need that to visitors and to locals. If you're going to tear them up, what a great time to reimagine your downtown to being about people, not cars and traffic and parking issues. And so that's what this is all about. But anybody have any questions? You seen enough? What you have here is amazing. I think it's just absolutely amazing. I got to tell you, my retirement's in like 10 months. But I got to tell you, of all the projects, I've worked in 2,200 towns. And it was a conversation my wife Jane and I had the night before I came out, is I said, of all the places we've ever worked, I said, what's your favorite? You know what she said? Blowing Rock. I've never said that in any other town, but of all the towns we've ever visited in 40 years of doing it, she's been working with me for the last 30. And I traveled until COVID, traveled 250 days a year. This town I really take to heart. And I really get where the citizens are coming from. I get it. I just think, oh man, when we drive around here, we're like looking at houses. We're on Realtor.com going, oh, there, but it's unbelievable what you have. And I think you're absolutely right to protect it.
To all the realtors in the room, please do not attack him when he tries to let him go in peace. Linda, don't try to trick him. Hey, Roger.
Yes.
Sell the concept of parking to these churches around town.
Yeah.
You know, there's I know from, I saw some of the signs I had put up, so
Yeah.
I'm familiar with that. You get pushback because this is a church, it's
Yep.
free parking, all this, and that's a tough sell.
Yeah, and I wouldn't expect every church to do it, or just say we could offer it. I thought if the only reason there would be something in for the church is it could help generate revenues, because it'd be a revenue share. Well, if we let the town use our parking 6 days a week, then if we pay, it's our parking, can we share some of the revenues from that, like 70%? So that's all. But if a church says, you know what, we consider that part of our sacred trust, the parking is part of our parish or our congregation, therefore we don't want to do that, I have no issue with that. I just thought maybe there'd be a way we could do that. And really, once you get the parking structure, it's going to be not near as paramount. I'm trying to hear, what do we do in 2022? What do we do in 2023? What do we do up until you actually have a structure somewhere that's built? And so I think it would be an offer, but I totally would understand. If somebody says, no, we don't want to do that, then I could see that. But it also creates another issue. So let's say that you do that. You say, okay, we're going to put there, and no parking Sundays between 10 and 2. Or, I'm just making up hours. Well, then now we have to have a parishioner out there watching the parking lot to make sure people aren't parking there and pretending like they're going to service, but they walk the other way. See what I mean? Do we get into that kind of an enforcement problem? Does it create, those are all things that we have to flesh out. That's why there's still more consulting that has to be done with this. But I just thought it might be a way to help generate some revenues for some of the churches or banks or, like Wells Fargo, maybe after hours. I don't know what their hours are, but after hours they could actually generate revenues. Now, generally speaking, parking would be free like after 6 anyway. We want to encourage people downtown after 6 and create activities downtown to get people to spend the night. But yeah, that's a good point, and I would certainly respect churches to say, you know what, it is our parking, we want to keep it for us, and certainly respect that, for sure. Yeah. Anything else? All right, you're free to go. Happy holidays, everyone. I can't wait to come back and see how it's all going. So thank you very, very much, everyone. Thank you.